Welcome, everyone, to the Unschooling the Mind podcast with your host, Tasha Fishman. This is episode 4. And tonight I wanted to talk about something that I get asked a lot. People calling me in sheer panic and in fear because they have an unsupportive partner or family or friends that think that they're crazy. The idea of pulling their kids out, homeschooling or unschooling, going against the grain is terrifying for a lot of people. And when you're even starting to talk about it, you might get a lot of pushback. So a lot of people reach out to me and say, what do I do? My partner would never go for this, or my ex would never go for this, or my parents think I'm crazy. So I thought that we would talk and address that tonight. So first of all, what would I say to that? Number one, you have to have compassion. And the reason I say this is because I've been through it myself. And what I've come to learn is that, like with all things, we don't know what we don't know. So the people that are counseling you not to do this are well-intended. They love you and they probably love your children very much. But they are unaware of the magnitude or the sense of urgency, perhaps, that you might come to have known in recent years. They don't understand the full picture. Or perhaps they come from a generation where school was looked at very differently. Like I think about my grandparents' generation, and many of them didn't go to university. So to go to university or post-secondary or even finish high school is such a huge achievement. And they equate that with success. They equate education as synonymous with success. And it might have been at one time. That might have really worked in our society, but that is very untrue today. So when you're speaking with grandparents and people from an older generation, they just don't know. They don't understand. And it's something that, like all things, you need to slow drip over time, because when you bombard people with your ideas or you give them too much information, they might just shut you down. And when you get angry or defensive, that's another way that you'll just create more problems for yourself. So just be kind and remember in that moment that they do not know what you know, and they aren't seeing what you were seeing. Now, it gets a little more complicated when it comes to the co-parent, either your husband or your partner or potentially your ex. That can get a little bit more tricky. So for me, what I did, my husband, I remember when I came home and I said, okay, I cannot send them back. It was May of 2020. I was having a spiritual awakening, an existential crisis. I was going down all the rabbit holes. I was then uncovering the dark history of compulsory schooling. I had all these epiphanies, understanding that this was part of a control matrix that I didn't want to be a part of. I didn't think my kids were safe at that time. And then I came to understand even further as time went on what the entire purpose of government-run schools are. The brainwashing, the psychological operations, and the outcomes that it produces, which is reflexive, obedient followers. And I was really watching this on a massive scale throughout the planet. And I thought, what's the common denominator here? How come billions of people are just absolutely taking this and listening to this small, minute group of people called the government or their TVs and just complying? Why do I know so many people who are smart, intelligent people? They're saying they don't want to do this, but they have to, and they're complying. Well, the common denominator is really school. And the higher up you go, the worse it gets. We are conditioned from the age of 5, the minute we enter those buildings, to sit, be quiet, don't talk to your neighbor, listen to authority without question, raise your hand, ask to leave and go to the bathroom. Think about it. We've been conditioned our whole lives to listen to authority without question. So if you are at the point where you have decided that you're not doing that, you are going to raise critically thinking, free humans who have an integrity that cannot be bought or compromised, then you have to do it differently. And right now at this juncture, nothing's really built. It's like Babylon is falling, it's on fire, it's burning, and the new earth isn't quite built yet. The new systems aren't birthed yet. We're going through birth pains right now. But it's all happening. There's people doing wonderful things all over the place. There's people creating communities, creating learning pod centers. Parents are coming together. Grandparents are helping out, aunts, uncles. This is all happening, whether you see it or not. Trust me, it is. But people haven't figured out what works for them because people are messed up with what their values are. They've been told what their values are. I was told what my values are. My values at the time were keep my kids as busy as possible in all the activities so that they can be productive members of society later on in life. So let me schlep them off to this coach and that person and this tutor and do this in grade 1. Let me make sure that they're reading because the teacher says they have to. Oh my gosh, the pressure. After a 12-hour day, I need to get these books in. They need to know their phonics. What happens if they don't read by middle of grade 1? All of that, and I laugh about it now, but at the time was very real for me. That was the truth. That was my treadmill. That's what I was aiming for. Those were the gold star hoops I was jumping through. I mean, heaven forbid the teacher didn't think I was trying my best and took it out on my kid. Anyway, back to the partner. So when I said to my husband, there's no way they're going back. I'm going to homeschool. Will you just give me the opportunity? Like, can we just agree that I'll homeschool for 1 year? Now, you got to remember, I was not your granola, attachment parenting, breastfeed till they're 5 parent. I loved working. I loved working in our family business. I loved the hustle. I breastfed for a year. I was home with them, but I was excited to go back to work. They were in preschool. I was excited about that. I was excited to have my free time. I was excited to schlep them off. I didn't really even know how to be with my kids all of the time because I was trained not to be. So the idea, they literally would miss the bus sometimes in the winter and say, Mommy, will you homeschool me? And I'd be like in my head over my dead body, let's go get on that bus or let me get you in the car and take you. Because my priorities were completely screwed. But they were the priorities of the day in that time, in that reality. So the idea of anything else didn't fit. My world had to change completely upside down in order for me to change my values. And that's exactly what Schmovid brought on for me. So it really is a blessing in disguise. Through all of that pain, I am on the other side of it. And I'm very, very blessed and grateful, which is really what happens with all things, doesn't it? The worst things in the world, have so many blessings hidden in them. So he thought I was nuts. And he said, there's no way you're going to do that. You're going to kill yourself. That's what he said. And I said, babe, we got to burn the boats to get to the island. And we had gone to a Tony Robbins seminar, a couple of years back. And so he knew that saying, and he just said, okay, and I was determined to go to the Scholastic teacher store and buy everything that I could, every curriculum, every book, every alphabet, every multiplication table, like all of the things. I was going to go out. While everybody was schlepping their kids back on the school bus in September, I was going out to the woods, and I was going to do this from 9 to 12, Monday to Friday, and then we would play in the afternoon, and it was going to be amazing, and I was going to be so good because, they love their mommy, and it's going to be amazing. And so when it wasn't amazing, and when it was an epic fail and they didn't want to do the work and I didn't want to do the work and it was just tedious and taxing and just pull your hair out, and I was trying to coerce them and I was trying to manipulate them to get them to do the work, and I was trying to force the work on them, I was like, I'm a failure. What have I done? My husband was right. And all the books that you read in the jargon from the governments that'll tell you, if you look at some of their stuff, it'll say things like, have you really considered this option? How would your family and friends feel? Can you really do this? They want you to doubt yourself. Think about it. It's $1 billion business. They can't have everybody deciding they're going to homeschool their kids. Although I would like the funding that they get. I think they get $14,000 a kid, and we get about less than, $900 a year. I'd like the money that we give to education through our tax-paying dollars to come back to homeschooling parents. How about that? No, because then we would be competing with them, right? Then there'd be a real problem. That's when they'll outlaw or make homeschooling illegal like they have in other countries around the world. So this is what I said to him. Do you trust me? That was my question. Do you trust me? Do you trust that I love our children as much as you do? You had to think about that. Well, of course you do. Yes. Well, if you trust me, can you give me this calendar year to figure it out? I don't know all the answers. I don't always get it right, but I will figure it out if you give me the year and you just let me be with the kids and figure it out. And if you don't, and if you can't do that, then I'm going to ask you to read all of these resources. And I had 10 books and documentation, videos, all sorts of stuff, basically showing what's going on in the world. And then we'll have an educated decision about it. And he was like, all right, I trust you. Let's do this. So once I got out there and it was an epic fail, the homeschooling part, I thought, oh my gosh, he was right. I do want to jump out of a bridge right now. Why do my kids not want to do this? I tried everything, from bribing to coercion to yelling. I was like, I can't do this. I'm miserable. So are they. Luckily for me, I ended up finding Dana Martin. I ended up reading books from John Holt. I ended up going down the path of self-discovery, of the beautiful philosophy and the magic of unschooling and the science of unschooling. I didn't believe it right away, of course, but I just knew that I couldn't do it this way. I just knew that this way wasn't going to work for us and our families. So I'm not knocking homeschooling. If it works for you, that's wonderful. But this is for people who are, looking for a way out, sense that I have a freedom in me that perhaps they don't have yet, but they want. Or it's for people who are struggling with homeschooling. It kind of feels like you're going to the dentist, don't know what to do, who are ready to take a look at their hidden conditioning about all that they know about how kids learn, how we learn as humans, and what kids ought to know, and all the myths and all the fear-based conditioning that has been bestowed upon us from our own experience in school. If you are ready to take a look at those beliefs that do not serve us and shatter them and do some reprogramming, you will see the magic unfold with unschooling like I have in these years past. I mean, now it's completely changed my life. The way I view the world, the way I advocate for children, my relationship with my children, my relationship with humans, really. Understanding and acknowledging how we actually learn is actually the opposite of what is set up for us in government-run schools. Huge, life-changing stuff. So I'm talking to those people. But back to the parents. So that was my husband. So that's the question. Do you trust me? Can you let go? Because in one calendar year, nothing bad can happen. You have to stop future tripping. Future tripping is, and believe me, I was there. Oh my gosh, what have I done? Have I made the worst decision of my life? What if they never get a job? What if they can't go to university? What if they turn back and they look at me and say, why did you do this to me, mommy? You're the worst. All of those things. Just put the brakes on, okay? Take all of those fears and put them in a box for now. Let's just lock it up and put it to the side. You can go back to them, but just for now, let's just put them to the side. Back to present moment, okay? One calendar year. Nothing bad ever happened in one calendar year. People take off and they do sports. People take off and they travel. People have deaths in their family. Things happen. Nobody lost anything. Nobody didn't make it in life because they missed a year of school. So you have to look at it that way. 1 year at a time. Literally all the way to one day at a time. That's where we go back to, this present moment time. And then when you go further into it, you just get to the now moment. The now moment. Who am I being in this now moment with my children? How am I connecting with my children? Are we in a flow state? Are we in a rhythm? Are we in a season in our family that works for us? It is so hard to explain and articulate, but I understand because I used to be there on that treadmill, running my agenda and my schedule on somebody else's timetable, trying to get the orange shirts, the brown shirts, the bag lunches, the Terry Fox runs, the homework, the reading, this. outing. I got to sign this sheet, get 2 kids in different classes, all the lunches, the packing, the this, the that. You mean, you're asking a fish to describe water. I didn't know anything different. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing to make them productive members of society, to grow up happy and harmonious. I mean, we all went through it. We're fine, right? Well, look at the world around us. Are we fine? Were we fine? Is there some kind of correlation here with the skyrocketing mental health and perhaps everything that's going on in the world, but obviously all of our conditioning as well? That we've gotten so far off the path from nature and connection and stories and the love of learning to basically regurgitating information to make other adults feel comfortable, jumping hoops to get to the next thing, all in the name of achievement, for the sake of achievement and preparation for this thing called life, instead of actually living life in community and learning at the same time. Anyway, you're never going to get this out of a 20-minute, 30-minute podcast, but I did just want to touch on one of the most pressing questions I get again, which is, how do I deal with people who are against me? So the next step to remind you is that you do not need permission. Now, it's different when it's your partner or an ex or you're court ordered. There's lots of circumstances. It's not black and white. I understand that. It's not lost on me. But I'm talking about grandparents. And I know that might seem hard. Or the judgmental aunt, or the naysaying uncle, or the friends who are judging you because they don't want you to leave. They're trapped in the matrix too. I mean, they're running on their treadmill. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to leave this treadmill, to leave this matrix? It's the crab mentality. You do not need permission or approval. Now, I know that's going to be hard for a lot of people because we're really stuck on that, and that's a tribal thing. But this is what we're coming out of. This is what we're coming out with Schmovid. This is what we're coming out with the government. All of these things that are being unveiled to us are helping us break free from the herd mentality and actually find ourselves and remember who we are and what we stand for and what our values are. When you unschool, you get to rescribe, redetermine what your values are. You get to look at them all and decide, do these work for me? Do I need these ones anymore? Was this implanted in me in a young age? Is it actually true? Does it actually serve my kids to think this way? So you do not need permission from anyone. You don't need permission from the principal, from the teacher, from your neighbor, from your irritated family member, or judgmental friends. And you don't have to answer them. And you don't need to know it all. That's the thing. When we're justifying ourselves to people, especially people who disapprove of something we're doing, we feel that we need to have everything in alignment. We need to know everything so that we can justify our case so that they can rest easy. The grandparent that says, what do you mean? You're not qualified. Well, you know what? Actually, I am. I am the most, I am the person that loves them the most. And I might not be qualified for everything, but I'm really resourceful. And I will figure it out because there's millions of people that are unschooling and homeschooling their kids. And actually, it's gone up 112% in the last 6 months. So I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to find the help that I need. But thank you so much for your concern. That's something you could say. Or another thing that you can do is you can kind of pivot, bypass the question. You don't need to answer like the nosy grocery guy at the thing who's saying, oh, your kids are with you. Aren't you supposed to be in school? I don't tell people I unschool when I'm in a situation like that. Oh yeah, we homeschool. What's unschooling? What does that mean? Uneducating. And I can feel, and so can you, if you bear down and listen to your gut, whether somebody is authentic or not, whether they really want to know what you're up to and they're really genuinely interested. In that case, I will take the time to explain what we're doing or what I'm doing. But if I can see it's coming from a place of judgment, and I can feel it because you can feel people's frequencies, you can feel their energy, then I'll just pivot. I don't need to answer anybody's question. I'm not obligated to them. They'll say, oh yeah, we're doing our thing. And so anyway, how is it today? Or how are you today? Or what's going on for you? Just switch it around. You don't need permission. You aren't obligated. And you don't need to over-explain yourself. You can literally make a decision like this just from your intuition of knowing that something isn't right. Something isn't right. The kids aren't all right. Something isn't right in the schools. And I'm going to pull my kids until I figure that out. How about that? How about I'd rather be a year early than a day too late? How about that? And take the time. Take the time that you need to unhook from the system that has been latched onto us since our inception. Take the time to breathe again, reconnect with your kids. Take that 1 calendar year. And listen, my advice, if you want it, is not to do any curriculum the first year. Now, most people can't do that. Most people come out of the school system like I did, and they've got a full-blown classroom at their kitchen table. And for me, it was a process. Now, I'm a bit of an extremist. I am extremist, no, not like you think in conspiracy theories. I am an extremist as in I'm a Scorpio. So I'm kind of all or nothing. And I can dive deep into stuff. So basically, after 3 or 4 days, I was like, this isn't working. What's next? And I went right from that to unschooling. And I remember my home ed teacher said, Tasha, most people take about 3 years to get from homeschoolers to unschoolers. Like, you've done this in such a short amount of time. It's unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, that's how I roll. But, that can be really painful too, because you're just ripping off Band-Aids and you're having to deal with all sorts of people around you. But my husband's used to me. I'm a lot. But like I keep saying, who doesn't want more cowbell? Who doesn't want extra avocado? I know I'm a lot, but he's used to it. And so that was my story. But that might not be your story. You might just say, okay, well, we need to get some books and I need to do math, science, and English, and we need to be doing that. And, you got to do what's comfortable for you. But I know that you will find over time, most people, now not diehard like, Christian or religious homeschoolers, they've got a curriculum. And if that works for them, that is awesome. But for those of you who are pondering a little bit more, and I've noticed this on some of the social accounts, homeschooling moms saying, I used to think unschoolers, or I was really judgmental, like, oh, that's so crazy, unschooling. I can't do that. And they're starting to see it. They're starting to let go a bit, because unschooling is really just about us taking a look at our conditioning and seeing what works and what doesn't anymore, and actually questioning our own conditioning. Like, is it true that kids should be seen and not heard? Is it true that kids need to finish everything they start? Is it true that if I don't force them, they'll just run amok and wild? Is it true that if they don't do all these things, they won't be successful? Is it true that if I don't see these on test scores and compare them to standardized testing, that they're not learning anything? So unschooling is actually a path for the brave and courageous, people who have fear but are doing it anyway. I've met many, many brave and courageous parents on this path. People who've done it before me, who led the way like lighthouses, and thank goodness for them. Thank goodness for them. Amen to all you people who did the blogs and wrote the books, the John Holtz, the Dana Martins, so many. I'm so grateful. And this is why I'm paying it forward. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I really believe that unschooling is the antidote to global tyranny and to everything that's happening to us in the world. Not only is it a reclamation of our freedom with our children, but it's a way that we are going back to basics, God, community, homeschooling, freedom, family, faith. And we are saying, here and no further, WHO, here and no further, UN, here and no further, governments, and all of you people far outside of ourselves that think that you can rule us. So feel empowered, feel emboldened that you're taking this path. And the last thing I would say is while you're dealing with partners and parents and people who you feel you have to justify, when you let go of the need to have to justify yourself, it'll be a lot easier for you. But don't compare yourself. Comparison kills joy. That's the other thing. Make sure that you do not compare yourself to the very thing that you're running from, which is what I was doing. And that's why, to me, homeschooling with curriculum that's set by the place that I'm leaving and trying to do it and emulate school at the kitchen table is crazy. How am I going to compete with that? It's not set up for that. And that's why it was a failure for us. And I'm sure there's lots of amazing homeschoolers out there that have all different ways that they do it, and it works for them. And that is amazing. That is amazing. But for us, we had to take a more radical approach. And my kids do things all the time, just so you all know. And I'll get into that much later. They are learning all the time and doing incredible things. I didn't realize at first that their success was going to be based on the amount of work that I was going to put into myself. I used to have a business coach that used to say, want a better relationship with your kids? Work on yourself. You want a better relationship with your partner in your marriage? Work on yourself. You want a better business? Work on yourself. You know, it really is that true. The more I continued to unveil these hidden beliefs, these myths about parenting, about how children ought to be, learn, see, do, and what they need to know at a given time, and all my traumas that came from school, you know, my ideals about who I was, and that, you know, the comparison, you know, it really does. Comparison kills joy. And like the entire system is set up that way for comparison. And you might be thinking right now, well, what do you mean, Tasha? Like, how will I know how they're doing if I don't compare them to other people? Well, what if you don't have to? What if you just know that they're amazing because they're doing amazing things all the time and you don't need to compare them? And the very act that we compare our children to each other is the thing that creates, you know, the mental jargon and discontentment. The reason that there's addictions, the reason that we cling on to things that don't serve us is because we're trying to check out and escape from this comparison. Anyway, that's another podcast. But for now, I just wanted to address that. That's what I did. Take it for what it's worth. It's just, I'm sharing my story out loud and the hundreds of parents that I've worked with. And the ultimate thing, the other thing is, lastly, is that if you're in a situation where you have an ex and you're court ordered and you can't get them at school, pray. And I swear I've seen this work. Last resort. It's not even a last resort. It's always a first resort. I love to pray. I pray every day. I pray all the time. But pray that your partner will see the light, that you will know what information to send them and what not to send them, that you will help them, that they will be able to discern for them that something's going on, you know. And if all else fails, be an unschooling parent at home with schooled kids. That's happening all over the place, whether it's because the kids don't want to leave, whether it's because they can't in the family. If you are a parent that is raising your children to question absolutely everything, especially people of authority, including yourself. Think about that for a second. Including yourself. And you are able to hold space for your kids to question you and your beliefs. You are raising kids in the unschooling philosophy, even if they're in school. If you are telling them that their value is not based on their grades, that they can do their best, or if you're supporting them above all else in the school system because they have to be there for whatever reason, but you are there for them, not the system, and that you are reminding them constantly that they are not based, their value isn't based on that system, you are giving them the unschooling philosophy. If you can give them as much freedom of choice and unrestricted time as possible when you do have them to make their own choices, you are working in a way of resistance within the system. So I don't want to, I don't want to make people feel bad if they're in a situation where their kids are still in the system. That's not what this is about. It's about the end goal of keeping and creating connection, true connection with our kids, and raising them with a confidence and an ability to question authority so that we do not repeat what we have been seeing in the last 3.5 years. And I know we have a long way to go. I know this is just the beginning, but we still have to raise our kids in the meantime. And we want the opposite of the outcome that we've seen in the last 3.5 years, don't we? So everything has to radically shift. Everything has to radically change. And when you understand that you are a pioneer of the new earth, when you understand that this is your mission, if you are listening to this and this is calling to you, or you are getting intuitive hits that you need to leave, or you need to create something, you understand that we are here for a bigger purpose. So who cares what the grandparents think and what the judgmental neighbors think, or your chatty Kathy friend thinks, or even your partner? If you hear the calling, answer it. They will see in time. They always see in time. I literally had my judgmental Kathy friend, best friend, came and stayed with me this summer. And she said to another friend, Tasha's kids are so amazing. I'm thinking about homeschooling. And she's in the system. She's not somebody that's going to homeschool. But just to say that she just found them so mature and so in their own bodies and fun and happy and thriving, and probably everything opposite of what she thought they were going to turn out to be. And you will see it too. So even if you don't believe in the process right now, but you're getting that calling, you have the inclination, you're getting that intuitive hit to do something, to change, to pull them, I promise you, just like my mentor said to me, give it time. You will see the growth. You will see the learning. The more you let go, the more you unschool your own mind. When we thrive, they thrive. And that's key. So anyway, friends, that's it. I just wanted to drop that podcast tonight. It is Sunday. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you again soon on the next episode. Bye for now.